Namaste and welcome to Satsang today. So, as always, let's start with why we're here. Why are we in Satsang? What is the purpose of Satsang? And how can we make the most out of it? Satsang is really for the direct experiential realization of truth. And that's just not a mental understanding, because that isn't going to give us that peace that we look for. It's a deeper, more well-grounded awakening that's gone right deep down into the heart as well, the mind and the heart, and even into the cells of the body, and allows us to live then from this stable, effortless realization of what is really true about us. How most of us live is actually an abnormal state of consciousness. And reality then is the actual normal and natural state. So let's start our satsang from there, that we actually are returning to our natural state. Before we got confused by this idea that we are a separate someone, a person, an entity that is separate to everyone and everything else. And before we really believe this idea that we are this body, and when this body goes, so do we. Because there's nothing more terrifying to a human being than that idea that at some point we will cease to exist. And without that terrifying idea, I would not be sitting in this chair talking like this. It was that idea in particular that drove me all the way to full realization of who I really am. It so terrified me growing up, this idea that one day I would cease to exist, that I did, of course, like everyone else, everything I could think of to run from this idea. And I was actually always amazed that everyone around me seemed to not be so concerned about it, or at least they were better at hiding their fear than I was. And I hear this from many students and people on the pathway, that it's somehow seems harder for us to suppress that fear, to move beyond it, because we're not so good now at this stage in our evolution as an individual, not separate, but an individual. We're not so good at running away from what is. And maybe we've never been good at running away from what is. Maybe we've inherently had this urge to be with what is. And that's okay if what is feels good right now, but if it doesn't feel so good, that's another question there. So satsang is for the realization of who we really are, and an end to all fear. And not just fear, but any emotion that is a reflection of ideas of separation, which just happens to be all and every negative emotion we could feel. Do you believe it's possible for a human being to live without any fear? And even before all fear has left your system, do you believe it's even possible to be totally just able to witness that fear and let it arise in its intensity and its fullness and its richness? Could you be in a place in your awakening where you welcome whatever arises? Doesn't mean like. No, I don't think I've met anyone, myself included, who likes fear. But we are at a certain point able to welcome it and feel it. So I was sitting here a couple of minutes before we started the Zoom session, and I didn't know what was going to come out. That usually some idea of something comes forward before we start the satsang, what I really want to talk about. But about 2 minutes before we started, I still had no idea. And I think it's really just emerging right now. Apparently, tonight we're supposed to talk about fear. And for some reason, I feel called to share something that hopefully might be helpful. But my own journey with fear, from how it really started to the last time I felt fear, thought that might be useful. Apparently, it's what wants to arise. So usually that means it's relevant to what's going on for people. I remember being a very small child, or being in a very small child's body, having a small body. One of my very first memories that I can't really remember where I was in a geographical location wise, but I remember this terrible feeling of being really, really scared, and couldn't really find any reason why I was scared at the time. One of my first memories is a feeling that something is about to go wrong. Something in any moment is about to go really terribly wrong. And I was just kind of waiting for that to happen. And my whole life, excuse me. My whole life, I remember that feeling being there to one degree or another. And of course, I did everything I could to suppress that feeling. And I always thought of myself as being very strange because I couldn't seem to suppress it, like I was saying before. Everyone else around me, at the time at least, seemed to be very good at ignoring it. And did my best to deal with that fear, that sense of waiting for the other shoe to drop, is the saying. Something, any minute now, something is going to happen and it's going to be really bad, terrible. And then I remember the first time I heard that someone in the family had died. It was my great auntie when I was quite young. I became fascinated with this idea of death and really wanted to get to the bottom of what death was. I remember finding out that death was this, from the people around me at the time, death was this finality. That person was here and now they've gone. And sometimes they would say they've gone to a better place, but still no one had any real proof of that. And it was terrifying. Do you remember the first time you heard about death? Can you actually remember how that felt inside? The first time you realized as a separate being that at some point you came into existence, and for a future point you will cease to exist. If we all just get really honest right now, there's some moment inside where we have that recognition. And everything changes from there. At some point, as a separate being, at least, I'm going to cease to exist. And that started me on a journey, on a search. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I wanted something to deal with this pain, to deal with this pain. And it was only about 20 years later, I realized I was actually looking for awakening. Didn't even know what that was for such a long time. I remember the first time I read, I think it was in the Upanishads, about the sages living without any fear at all. And something inside me at that moment just was unable to accept anything different than that, anything less than that. That doesn't mean it happened straight after, of course. There was a lot of suffering in between that point and when it actually stopped, suffering stopped. So the whole point of telling you this was fear was always the best friend, along with anger and a lot of jealousy, apathy, and a whole host of other things I'm sure we have all felt at some point. And the turning point for me was when I realized that that was, as much as I hated to feel fear, as much as my body really, really didn't like it. Well, actually, my body was fine with it. It was me that didn't like it. I realized that it was the most valuable spiritual tool in my awakening that I would ever have. And if that fear had not been so intense and so unavoidable and so insistent on making its way into my life, and I don't know, maybe I would have woken up anyway, but there sure was a shove from behind by this fear. Every time I stopped or stalled out along the path, this fear would push me again. And finally, I found that I couldn't feel scared anymore. And it doesn't mean that pockets of fear every now and again don't arise from some deep place, like a bubble in a glass of liquid that rises to the surface. But I can't ever be scared again. And I realized that I'd never been scared, actually. This whole death thing is simply not true. There is an end to the body, but never to me or you. And I'm not saying that you have to be absolutely terrified in order to wake up. I am saying that the thing that you're resisting right now might be the best thing on your spiritual path. If you're struggling with anger or fear or jealousy or anything at all, whatever it is that you're struggling with right now, what if that was your best help, your biggest vehicle, the most available vehicle, whatever you're pushing away right now, could that be the thing that you really could do to embrace? I remember one time I was living here and I'd had some kind of insight about fear, and I remember actually realizing that I don't have to ever like it, but I can feel it. And I sat outside here in the back garden, and I remember just being absolutely terrified. And if you've ever been that scared, you know, where everything is shaking, everything completely. And there was this huge surge of fear. It just kept coming and coming for about 2 or 3 hours. And it had been there, this fear, for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks continuously. But this particular night, it was, excuse me. It was asking me to really look at it after this realization of I don't have to like this thing. And I sat out the back here for about 2 hours, just terrified. But the amazing thing was there was nothing within me that wanted to push that away. Nothing. And it's like I couldn't actually even push it away. With this realization that it might actually be the most valuable tool, better than any spiritual teacher or any teaching or book or satsang, this fear might be the teacher right now, might be showing up as fear. What can I then learn from that? So I sat and I was terrified for 2 hours. And after about, I don't know how long it was, it felt like quite a long time, but in an actual clock time, it was about 15 minutes of this 2 hours. I started to feel peaceful and scared at the same time. And it was very, very strange because I've never felt that before. Something within my body just relaxed and let go. It was a really warm night, so I just sat there. And I mean, I don't know how much longer into it than that, but I started to actually feel bliss and peace and fear and terror at the same time, all of it. And I would not have thought that that was even possible. Up until that point, I hadn't realized, but up until that point, there was this idea that fear had to leave before I could feel bliss. But something just opened up and accepted this fear in a way that I hadn't been able to before. And in that openness, that acceptance, there was bliss as well as fear. And I sat there, I rested 2 hours, it started to get dark, and I realized it was quite cold and came inside. And from that point onwards, I was just never somehow able to resist anything. When that fell away, I don't know. At some point between the previous time I was scared and this particular time, it was something fell away. I couldn't resist it. So what if whatever you're feeling right now, whatever negative emotion or suffering or physical pain or massive amount of thoughts, mental pain, what if that is the most direct portal into awakening that you could ever have? The greatest Zen teacher of all, whatever it is that you're struggling with. What if the very thing that we're trying to get rid of is here to show us something profound? And what is it like to open up to that? What is it like to open up to the thing that you've been pushing away for so long? So even if you're feeling shame or unworthiness, even I did this with shame as well, just the relief of not pushing against it. It didn't actually shift it or change it. It just the relief of not not dividing myself into two. Here's the thing that I don't want, and here's me. So what are you feeling right now? And can you allow it? If it's good, if it's something good, if you're peaceful, great. Allow that even. If you're feeling something we would call negative, can you allow that too? Can you go into it? Just making space for it. We don't have to like it. You're never gonna like it. There's always something inside that would prefer to feel bliss than fear. But what if you didn't have to wait until all that stuff was gone before you could actually start to feel these higher frequencies, higher things? What's the way to have that happen? Well, to go into it, to go deeply inside. If you are not a thing, then you can't really resist this fear anyway, or whatever it is, right? You are that formless space in which it's arising. You're inside the fear already. Can you somehow say yes to it inside? You're here, and I give you permission to exist. I don't have to like the feeling, but I do give you permission to exist. Why? Well, because that's what reality says should be happening right now. So it's a simple thing, but it's fundamental to awakening, fundamental. What if the doorway to freedom is here right now in this moment? What am I resisting? And can I turn around and welcome it? What if that one simple thing done consistently leads to permanent, stable, effortless peace. When we're not resisting something, we're not separate to it. We're never separate to it, but we won't feel separate to it. All suffering comes from separation, not from fear or shame or whatever it is. So what can you embrace? Just feeling your body now, checking out your body. What are you feeling? Is there some contraction somewhere, some tightness? Is there a lot of thoughts going on? Some negative emotion? Can you say just a little yes to it? You're here, so I'm not going to fight you because you're already here. Fighting and pushing against is just going to make me feel separate to what is. And this is what the sages have done consistently until they somehow forgot how to resist. And when you get this, you have this kind of fearlessness because anything could arise inside or outside, and you've forgotten how to push against it from there. And in fact, anything that arises is actually another opportunity to open up even more, become something actually that you're eventually grateful for. Not that we go looking for trouble or something, but when something arises, there is no fear of it. There's a kind of immunity then to suffering. If suffering comes only from pushing against what is, or trying to hold on to what was, which are both the same thing actually, then it's never been some strong emotion or the mind or whatever that we've been suffering from. Never. Never the external event, but only what I'm trying to do with it inside energetically. And I remember running around telling all of my family, who really thought I was quite insane, that I was terrified and blissed out at the same time. They're not on the pathway, so they were just giving me some very strange looks. But they knew I was happy, so that was enough for them. And of course, my ego made a person out of this. I'm going to be the one that allows everything to come, you know. And I lived as a separate being for about a year after that time when I was sitting outside, because I was being someone who, I didn't know it, of course, for a long time until it really started to hurt. Being someone who allows everything, you know. But there's something here right now about you that already cannot argue with reality, because it is reality. It just is. What if the path was more of a relaxing into and an opening up and an understanding and inclusiveness and valuing everything equally, pleasant or unpleasant, rather than what we tend to think it is, which is transcending and getting rid of and pushing away and letting go of and all of that. Maybe the only thing we transcend in the whole journey is the urge to push something away or hold on. These two things the ego does. Pushes away what it doesn't like, and it grabs a hold of, tries to hold on to what it does like. And here I've been talking about fear, because this was perhaps, well, it definitely was the biggest challenge of my life. But we could be talking about any emotion, really, anything at all, anything we're struggling with. What if every awakened being never managed to transcend anything? They just stopped pushing against it and somehow it went away on its own. And even if we find ourselves resisting something, like really resisting, like my mind was so quiet in meditation, yes, and today it's just going crazy. And I can't help but push it away. Okay, can you fully accept that you're resisting? Can you fully open up to that resistance? Just totally resist with everything you have. Like, be that, resist completely, and see what happens. This is a fundamental shift in my own path, and I hope that I am getting across the simplicity of the nature of awakening, that it's not about some super duper level of consciousness. It is intimacy with what is. It is allowance of what's already here. It is being that which cannot argue with anything and would not. Who you really are doesn't have any capacity to push against or hold on. Most of all, it cannot and would not push against this ball of egoic stress and tension and fear. It just completely allows the sense of a separate someone to exist in its full richness and its total insanity. Well, my separate self was completely insane. I'm sure everyone feels that theirs is too at some point. And this one idea, this one thought that I have to get rid of all negative emotions before I can find peace, it was just so untrue. That's what we all buy, right? We all buy that thought. When I've got rid of all my karmic patterns, then I'll be awakened. What if it's the other way around? What if I just slide into non-resistance and that stuff disappears then because I'm finally no longer pushing against it? So I'm always trying to shortcut the time remaining of suffering by really going for the route of the most direct way to stop suffering now, right now, this moment. Because Ramana said, be what you are, right? Be as you are. Whatever that is. It doesn't mean be peaceful. It means be whatever you are, as you are right now. If you're frustrated, be frustrated. If you're jealous, be jealous. If you're blissed out, be blissed out. If you're peaceful, be peaceful. If you're irritated, be that. If you're really sad, be that too. If you're restless, be restless. Non-resistance. And there became a point one day when I was, after all of this had worked its way through, I was driving on the motorway here, and this car pulled out in front of me, and there was this moment where I didn't know if I was going to be able to stop in time, because they pulled right in front of me. In that moment, there was just this, the body's either going to die or it's not. And there was a hope that it didn't, but there was no capacity for fear inside. It was very, very different. My foot still went on the brake and all the other things that had to happen, but it was just, let's see what happens here. At the same time, there was this deep knowing that it's not my time, not the body's time to go. I just wanted to finish with that bit in this talk because I want to go through the whole range of experiences to with fear along the journey and the other side of that. So what is your best friend right now? Could it be the thing that you are perceiving as your worst enemy, the thing you'd really like to get rid of? What if that was the teacher in disguise? Fear Taught me more about awakening than any scripture, any teacher, any teaching, anything at all. It was not, and never would be, my preferred way of learning, but we have what we have, so. So I'd hope that was helpful, because at some point along the way, I began to believe this idea that I had to get rid of all negative emotions and karmic patterns before awakening can happen. And it was totally the other way around, totally. The trouble is, you never really see an awakened being after they've realized who they are, when they're in that middle phase where they're applying what they've seen to the karmic patterns that are still there. Can I still be unworthy? Can I still die? Can I still be alone? Can I still be unlovable, feel unlovable, having seen who I am? Every single awakened being has had to go through that journey of applying what they seem to be true. So, yeah, hope that was what someone needed to hear, at least, because apparently that's what wanted to emerge here. So I will read a couple of questions that have been sent in, and I will take up to 4 questions online. If you want to raise your hand now, you can. I'll come to you in a few moments. First question says, so we've got 4 hands there, no more thanks. That's great, thank you. Hi, Helen. As there is no I, and someone sneaked their hand up. Okay, we'll see what time we've got. Hi, Helen. As there is no I, and all just is mind's doing or chatter, and no one is doing, I wanted to ask, does mind know what it's doing? Does it have awareness of its own? Like, if there is a thought, let's have an ice cream, and mind comments, it's so delicious. Can the mind feel the taste and compare it with previous tastes based on which it came to the conclusion that it tastes good? Or is it just a random thought? If it is random, how come that it coincides with what I'm doing? It's like something knows that I am eating. Please clarify. Thank you. So something knows, that much is true, but is it the mind? Mind's thoughts seem to be very aligned with the particular action, right? And it's commenting in this scenario, it's commenting on the flavor and the enjoyment of the ice cream. But is it the mind? Is mind sentient? What is mind, actually? And really look at what it is. It's a bunch of thoughts, not even like a whole collection of thoughts. It's a energy from which thinkingness arises. And one thought after each one arises, a string of sequential thoughts that seems to go on forever. So it's just one thought at a time. And a thought has no capacity for self-recognition, for sentience. Can you imagine if thought or mind had the capacity to be aware of itself? Mind would suddenly turn around one day and say, oh God, I'm talking about stuff that just doesn't matter or doesn't exist. I'm just going to be quiet now and let you enjoy your life. If it had that capacity to be sentient. But it does arise out of the sentience, out of that which is awake and aware and watching. So what if it is the awareness, the real self that's watching and enjoying the ice cream? And in its enjoyment, a thought spills out of it. The thought and the ice cream are happening from the same place, right? They're arising from the same place. And the self is enjoying because that's all it can do, the infinite self. So this thought arises out. This is really tasty, really delicious, really nice. And because we normally don't see the infinite self or perceive it, we assume that it is the mind that is the intelligence. It's asking, commenting on what is. But if mind was sentient, we would get much better results. How many times has your mind told you not to do something and it turned out to be a really good idea? And the opposite, of course, right? How many times has mind told you to do something and it turned out to be a really bad idea? So how much intelligence does it actually have? I'll read one more quick one. Hello, Helen. Thank you for your teachings. I'm having some trouble with feeling disconnected and worn out. I'm trying different avenues to change, and it's become apparent to me that I am not thoughts or the mind. I am the one witnessing. This is causing a sense of instability in my mind, which is making it harder to operate in the world. I feel lost and I don't know what direction I'm headed in. I have dreams and desires, but I feel far removed from these. And effort to try and make these happen seem futile. Could you offer any advice? So I'd just like to start by saying the recognition that you're the one witnessing isn't causing the instability of mind. Actually, we're just coming to realize how unstable the mind has always been. It's getting harder to operate in the world because the one who thinks they're operating is disappearing. The one who's going to work for a reason, or going to pick the kids up for a reason, or doing anything at all in the world, in our lives, is disappearing. So not harder to operate, and it's a subtle difference, but nonetheless really important. Not necessarily harder to operate in the world, but harder to find the motivation to act as a separate self. It's very, very different. And, I feel lost. You said, I feel lost and I don't know what direction I'm headed in. Well, that you've just described awakening there, not the lost bit, but I have no idea where I'm going. No purpose for running satsang at all. No reason for doing it other than it's what seems to be happening and I like it. I don't know from one minute to the next where life is going to take me, and I love it. And I wouldn't want to know now. Wouldn't want to know. I'd rather discover, actually. It's much more fun. So maybe just taking that in deeper. I don't know which direction I'm headed in. Don't let that land here. Let it sink here. I don't know. And do I need to know? Has it really worked out for us knowing anyway which direction we're going in? Has it actually ever really brought us happiness permanently? So sinking in more to that, just being without any direction. What is it like to move through an experience without actually needing anything from it? A good experience, a bad experience. What if you were just here and experiencing, and the body was just doing all those things anyway? So the separate sense of someone is losing motivation and losing conviction, and you're losing your ability to believe in it. That's what's falling away. And just allowing the weirdness of the shift over. The self, the infinite self, doesn't do anything for any reason at all. It's just here. And the body's moving around inside. And everything gets done from there, and really efficiently and in a really enjoyable way. So hopefully there's something in what I've said there that will help move you forward. Your dreams and desires, you feel far removed from them. You know what? They are the dreams and desires of the infinite self when it appears as a human being. They will definitely manifest. As you sink into this, like this is the desire of the infinite being. It's not a separate self's desire because it doesn't exist, the separate self. It's never been found. missing an action. So allowing those desires, really getting in touch with those desires, getting more in touch with what you actually want. And why would the self, the infinite self, want this? What would be the purpose of that if there was one? To see if you can just allow it to come to the surface a bit more. So, okay, we'll go to Dawn to start off with. When you're ready, Dawn.
Afternoon or evening.
Hi.
Thank you for the satsang and all the beauty you bring
Thank you.
or light. Um, so I was at this conference in California, and I lived in North Carolina. And 2:30 Sunday morning, my dad calls and tells me my mom has broken her hip, and she's 90, and I could see it was coming. And I had been pleading with them to get an elder care plan in place, and they refused. And my mom had, she had been in physical therapy the last 4 weeks. I'd been 3 times with her, and all of them said, "Don't fall," and she fell. And it was preventable, but she didn't grasp mentally. I don't think she could grasp that she can't do everything she used to do. And my dad, wants her to cook and clean for him, but he doesn't want her to do yard work or what. And so he said, "Do what you got to do." And I went ahead and took the guilt and came back. And I didn't think they could handle it. And I don't know if I made the right decision to come back or whether, but I've been pleading with her in particular to tell him we need an elder care plan in place. We got two 90-year-old people, and she, and today when I was visiting her in the hospital, she said, and this was a week and a half ago, 5 days before she fell, that he went berserk when she asked him to get an elder care plan in place. And he's 93. And, I'm just trying to look at what perspective would Helen give me on this? Should I come back? And I didn't think they would take care of her. And I don't think they're taking care of her physically. And I mean, I think this is elder abuse for her to be cooking and cleaning for my brother who's 58 years old and healthy, and doing his dishes and doing his laundry. And I mean,
so what's your question?
My question is, should I have come back, or did I just enable the situation and in seeing myself as a separate being? And how can I bring more love and light to the situation and to, this call and the planet?
Mm-hmm. So you could start by remembering that you didn't make a decision whether to leave or stay, right? What happened, happened.
Yeah.
So spending a lot of time trying to figure out whether you made the right decision or not is just going to deplete your energy, because you didn't choose as a separate being. From there, it's going to be very hard to get clarity on anything if we're stressing over. And of course, you want to do what's best. I get that totally. Of course we do, but let's not
And
buy the story that you...
the manipulative side of me was like, okay, if I go back now, they'll trust me to come back when they need
But there
me.
again, you see, you think you're making
Yeah,
a decision.
yeah, yeah,
I could decide right now if to get in the car and go.
right.
Can you find a separate being that would decide that?
No.
So just let that hit you. Let's not let it not be a no, but let's let it be a no. There is no separate being, and it's not a denial of responsibility. It is coming from a place of truth where the highest thing can emerge the thing that's best for all beings in this position, involved in this. What does that look like? We don't know, right? What your
Right.
body does next after this, we don't know. We only think we would, these are my options. I can do this, this, or this. And we delude ourselves into thinking that we're making a decision as a separate being. But whatever your body does will be the highest action that's possible, the highest outcome, what everybody's body does involved. And the only thing we have control over is whether we think we're a separate being or whether we're coming from the truth that you are your parents and you are everyone involved. And from there, the highest thing, and even a miracle, what we call a miracle, can manifest. What that looks like, I don't know. But beating yourself up about a decision you think you've made is just going to diminish what's possible to manifest in the next moment, right?
Yeah.
So the best thing you can do right now is stay as open as you can. Let's see what wants to happen. Let me not try to figure this out. And let's see what wants to happen.
Okay.
Firstly, you'll feel better because you're not coming from illusion anymore. But secondly, your peace and your understanding and everything that you've realized is gonna begin to benefit all of them as well, because you're not artificially dividing yourself from them by thinking yourself to be a separate doer. See if you can just sit with this question a little while. What wants to happen here? What wants to arise out of this?
Okay.
And whatever the body does from there is going to be the highest thing that's possible in that moment.
Okay.
That's the best way you can love them right now and yourself.
There is no separate self. Are you kidding?
The self, then, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
Not a
you.
satisfying answer to the mind because it wants to know what to do, but I have to tell you the truth. That's my job, right? So, and you just told me to, so that's good.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, we'll go to Melanie.
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
I'm a little confused because when I've had surgery in my eyes. When I experience like intense pain in my eyes,
Hmm.
I tried to get rid of the pain.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get rid of the pain by trying to be aware of what or who is aware of the pain. So that instead of, because I think when I'm feeling the pain, I'm in the little self. And when I go back to being aware of the awareness of the pain, I'm going into my higher self. But I'm not sure now about the concept of welcoming it. What so what would I be doing? Like I'd be saying, "Oh, I welcome this intense pain." I mean,
Well, it's a really good example to use here because physical pain, nobody likes physical pain, not even awakened beings, right? Especially not. But the awakened being is recognized at the same time. So let's say some real strong pain is there right now. The most natural thing in the world is that something is going to push against it and try to get rid of it, right? Some fragment inside of ego or whatever is always going to say no to physical pain or any kind of pain, right? It's never going to like it. At the same time as that no, there is something that is the real you, awareness, we're calling it here, that can only say yes. So the separate sense of self or ego tries to get rid of the pain by using its spiritual toolkit. Okay, if I do self-inquiry, if I meditate or whatever, this will go away. But there is also something about you now that is only able to say yes, to include, to allow, to be with. So ego can only say no, and the infinite self can only say yes. Where we struggle is we think it's one or the other in any particular moment, right? If some intense pain came up for me, or when I was in India, I got quite sick for a while and I didn't like it. Didn't like it. And I was really, really okay with it at the same time. Something would have always preferred to be healthy and enjoying myself. But there was nothing within me that could resist the resistance. It was just totally allowed to exist, as well as the illness itself, right? Can you get a sense of it?
Yeah. I think I'm not sure of that term resistance. I'm not sure how I'm resisting it.
Well, if you think of there's a sense that you don't want this pain, right? That you want it to go away. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's the resistance. When I don't want when
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of it, that's resisting it.
Something's trying to figure out how to get rid of that. Is it you, though?
I guess it's the little self, because the higher self accepts everything.
And you are that higher self. The little self is just a bunch of thoughts and an energetic no. It just, whatever is happening, it could be anything at all. It just says no to it, right? Or it could be fear, or like we're saying, it could be physical pain, could be lack of money, not enough energy, anything at all, restlessness. When I'm trying to meditate, it will just say no, I don't want this. I don't want this. That's all it can do. And it's very good at that, really good at that. But we think somehow we have to try to get rid of that before we can be the real self, the awareness. But awareness watches even the ego just doing its thing. It's just totally okay with whatever ego's doing. You get to choose in any moment which you're going to identify with. What if ego and all of its resistance is just another phenomenon arising inside you? So there's the pain, and then there's the no, and then it's all happening inside you.
And the no is the trying to figure out how to get rid of the pain.
Yeah, and it just gets more clever with its tactics. Now it uses self-inquiry to try to do it, right? If I really find out who I am, this pain will go away, says ego. Or if I stay as the awareness or whatever.
Oh, but I thought that was true, that if I do get in touch with who is aware of the pain and then rest in that awareness, I thought that really does work.
It
But you're
really
saying
helps, but not because the ego managed to get rid of anything. Let's say you and I did some self-inquiry right now, right? There'd be two reasons for doing it. The first would be the ego that's trying to get away from the pain. The second would be the awareness wanting to recognize itself even clearer.
Oh, so to make sure now in the future, to make sure that I'm doing it from the awareness wanting to be more clear.
And also including that which is trying to use it to escape suffering, right? It's okay. Two motivations for doing any spiritual practice. Always. For a very long time, there'll be two motivations. But just gently favoring, I'd like to recognize myself a bit more because that's what I already am and it's what's true. And then it will also have the nice side effect of suffering disappearing. Even if the pain is still there really strongly, you will not be able to go into resistance with it after a while because the awareness, you can't resist anything.
So you're saying pain is still there? I could be.
Most of the times it goes away, but even if it doesn't, it's experienced very, very differently. It's like if you look around the room at the room that you're in right now, any insentient object, apparently insentient, There's a table over there. I'm not trying to get rid of it. I'm not having emotions about it. I don't need to change it or move it. It's just a table, right? Eventually, even physical pain can just be like that. We'd always prefer to feel bliss than physical pain, of course, but we don't need to be in resistance with it. Awareness is never resisting it, right?
No. Actually, when I'm in intense pain, I kind of say, okay, I'm ready to die, rather than continue in the intense pain. Since I'm going to die anyway, let me die now, rather than keep bearing.
Can you is that really going to be a good long-term strategy though? Because and I totally understand, I totally get where you're coming from, but that is reinforcing the idea that you can die. You're not going to die. So that's adding to the illusion, right?
Oh, that's going into the little self again.
Of course, it wants an end to suffering, but what is that death that it's looking for? It's actually looking for an end to suffering. That's what it wants, isn't it? It wants an end to suffering.
Thank you. That's a good point.
Don't get me wrong. I've been right there. I've been right there many times in my own journey. Just I have to get this, or I'm heading out with this body. You know.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Good questions. Okay. Helena.
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
I just want to apologize first because I haven't really, I'm not really sure what the question is. I'm just wanting to clarify something I'm struggling with when you talk about the fear or the thing it is that you're struggling with. The thing I struggle with, I think, is in acknowledging that we're all one, that there's no separate self and that we're all one. What I find hard about that right.
Take your time, it's okay.
Because my husband died, I find it hard to does that mean he didn't exist? You know, if we're all just one. Because, you know, part of the reason that we want to live is to connect with other people, and we like their difference to us, you know, the fact that they're them.
Yeah.
And the idea that this is all imaginary and that we're all just one just makes me feel lonely. So I end up sort of fighting with that idea, I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I remember that being there myself. And it really comes from or my own journey with this loneliness was just constantly present, pretty much as long as I could remember, the sense of feeling very lonely. And it terrified me, actually, this idea that there was no separate self. You know, there was that I had been making up my whole life. Everything I ever thought had happened to me was a story. This separate being was a story that was so embroidered and embellished and taken on a life of its own. And when I began to realize that it really wasn't true, there was a recognition I was going to have to sort of fully accept that at some point, but I didn't want to, because the sense of loneliness came up. And as you said, there's no separate being, then who am I going to connect with? Who am I going to, you know, the richness of life is our human relationships, right? without those, all of this awakening is about our relationships. So being able to be with what is, and if that's another human being or whatever experience. So, but I finally came to the understanding that it's actually only if I'm feeling lonely, it's only a halfway realization. It needs to go a little deeper into what it means to be alone. Right? You with me so far, yeah?
Sort of.
Let me carry on and see if it doesn't if you get lost, just stop me. And if I if there is only me everywhere, if there's only one being, if I'm talking to myself right now, or you're talking to yourself right now, can you feel lonely from there? What's the mind says, well, of course, yeah, it's going to be, my mind went from everything from it's going to be utterly boring. It's just utterly dull, or terrifyingly lonely. And it also didn't like the idea that there'd be no special relationships, no romantic relationship that'd be special, no special relationship with my children, and all of that. But it's actually very different when actually experienced. It means that you have, let's say, the best you don't need to tell us what that is, but the best relationship you've ever had in your entire life, the closest, the most fruitful, the way you grew the most with that person. What if you had that feeling, that same feeling with everybody, every human body, and also every animal, insect, and seemingly insentient object? What if that's the only way you could feel all the time? Could you feel lonely then? What if every person that you walked past, you knew on some very rich and deep level? You didn't know so much whether they like tea or coffee, or what type of food they like, or what type of music, but you absolutely knew them. You knew them so deeply, and you felt like you'd been best friends forever. It's very different to what mind says, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, most of those best friends are not ready to hear that you're going to be best friends because they're busy protecting their sense of separateness. But to just walk through your life without any sense of any strangers anywhere, it's very different to what a mind imagines it to be. You'll even find yourself falling in love with inanimate objects. You probably know the tea bag story, but I'll tell it anyway. One day I was in the kitchen here and just took the tea bag out of my cup after I'd finished with it, and I was just standing there staring at it, just crying and crying. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen, a used tea bag. I was utterly in love with it. And I thought I'd gone insane at that point, but if you had the capacity to feel like that about anything and everything, there's no loneliness possible there. It's the only place where loneliness is not possible.
Maybe it's the use of the word self, which sounds lonely to me, and maybe that's just it's just a word,
Yeah, let's call it love. Let's call it divinity. Let's call it consciousness. Let's call it anything, right? Let's call it what is.
Yeah.
And a really cool thing is, from there, the whole world wants to play with you, right? People who would just normally, you'd walk past each other on the street, not even meet each other's eyes out of fear or whatever. The whole world just wants to play with you then. There's always someone ready to have a laugh and a play with you wherever you go. Currently, it's you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just a recognition that maybe the word self has some vibration around it, right? That is mind is in resistance to that idea of what it thinks self is.
Yeah.
But here's the quick way out of all of this, is to realize you're only seeing what's always been true. It's only always been you everywhere you look and everything you experience. Nothing's going to change in that, except you'll lose the capacity to feel lonely ever again. You'll feel at home wherever your body is, and amongst friends wherever you are.
Yeah.
Mind imagines this changeover that's going to happen, and it's the biggest story of all. You just come to see, oh, yeah, all this is me, actually. If you are the universe, can you be lonely then? So just pick a different word maybe, and the great thing about words is there's lots of them. You could just choose one that feels good.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very brave asking a question when it's very difficult to articulate it, but you did great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Joni, and then we'll take Anamika afterwards, and then we'll finish. Joni, when you're ready.
Yeah. Can't move very fast. Yeah. So tonight, I listened to talk last night, and I was kind of immersing myself in it. And after my meditation, I noticed I started feeling upset, and just came from nowhere. And then I realized I'd split off from the Noumenon and gone into this separation place. So I went and sat down and did contemplation on my now famous question, because it's been going on so long. And I thought, it's not going to work. It's just this again. And it wasn't like that at all. It was amazing. And I got loads from it. And I started being whole again with the Noumenon. So that was a big surprise for me that happened. And then my other question was about tonight when I was meditating. I got quite some intense pain in my head, and it's unusual. And I was, obviously the Noumenon was there because there was this beautiful energy, but there was this intense pain as well. And I actually didn't manage to get, I don't want to say the word success, but it just stayed there, and I got frightened. And
What stayed there? What stayed there?
The pain.
Uh-huh.
And I did the thing. It's an energy. Feel the energy. It's just a core energy, But I still, there must have been fear around it. The mind was in there saying, but this can get worse, And so I just ended up getting scared and feeling like a failure.
What would be success though in that? What would be the success that you were looking for?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like, when I did the contemplation and it went to neutrality. And it was just comfortable. It's just neutral, calm. That would have been success, but I know it's the doer in me that wants to get rid of it. And
Did you
then
hear what you just did you hear what you just said? You just said it's the doer in me that wants to get rid of it.
Yeah.
You did not say It's the doer that is me. You said it's the doer in me.
Now there's a separation straight away.
Well, this is what I'm saying. You already know, and I'm speaking from that place where the doer is just something arising inside you, the separate sense of self that has to do something about the pain and the fear. You said, I'm not paraphrasing, I'm quoting verbatim, it's the doer in me. So who is this me that the doer is in? Just really stop and look. Just really look. Who is this me? The doer is there. That much is it's a sense, it's a ball of fuzz, right? You know, stress and tension and fear and all that stuff. But what is it appearing in? Who is it
Or
appearing
self.
in? And what does that, don't just think about it, just go to it. Actually look, what is the doer appearing in?
My thought stream.
Keep looking, keep looking. What are you? If you can see the doer in front of you, you want me to keep going like this?
I'm not quite getting it yet.
Okay, but do you want to continue or are you?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see the doer, right? You know
Yeah.
it's there. So just for a moment, taking attention off of the doer and looking at what it is that sees the doer. You said the doer in me. Who is me? Don't try to think about it. Just ask that question like you would in contemplation. Who is this me? As if you're just asking the question because you want to. Who is this me? Don't need to get an answer here. Tell me how your body feels. Does it feel differently when you ask this question without needing an answer?
Yeah, I've gone more into the big self.
Into what, sorry?
Noumenon.
So just ask it again with me. Who is this me? Who is it? As curious as you can be. And we don't really care about an answer, right? Can you feel? I just don't really need an answer. I just like the question. Who is this me?
Yeah, it makes me feel calmer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gone into a good state now.
So we only switched attention with the question from what we're looking at, the doer, to who is looking. And we didn't get any final conclusion, but we did experience something different. We don't need an answer here, right? The body is telling us, oh, there's something different here I'm looking at. I don't know what it is. Don't need to know. But can I suffer from there, right?
Yeah. Brilliant.
So very much like contemplation, we just did some self-inquiry, just asking a question because it feels nice. That's all. We're not trying to find an answer or anything. We're not trying to get rid of anything. Although things do change as we come from that place of open curiosity. And if fear arises, we'll just say, okay, who's it arising in? Who is that? And pain and anything else that arises, right? We can just gently ask. Whatever you are, we don't know, but you handle things very differently to this imagined self. So just coming back to that when you need to, right?
Brilliant.
Wonderful. Well done. Well done.
Thank you. And you did get the right subject tonight, didn't you?
Apparently. Just kind of happens, right?
Yeah. Well done.
Thank you. Okay. It looks like it's hands. Yeah. Hi.
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
I have a question. This was so perfect to start on. what I'm pushing away most is the stress. And from the beginning, I felt I need to ask a question because then I feel it most. And it is very, very present for the moment. So I was for sure, I was the first to put up my hand and it didn't work. I was the one. And in fact, that was already too much because you said 3 or 4.
You were the sneaky last one, right? Just got in there, yeah.
That needed to be there. I could feel it. So that all that time I could see what is happening. First of all, I could see that automatically what's happening is I don't want this stress. So then I try some breathing exercise, like you just said. I think it was to Melanie. There are a lot of techniques that are used. So then the breathing, perhaps there is less stress. And it just, I can't ask a question. I don't have a question. Why do I put up my hand? And I felt I have to, because I just want to go through all this stress. And then I see, okay, let's just allow it. And I just allowed all the stress into my body, and I could see what is the meaning? What do you want to say me? And stress wanted to say me, okay, probably you will, yeah, you will look like very stupid. You even do not have a normal question. What is Helen going to think about? And all the other people, I don't even know how many people are watching this. All this came up, and I could see this was giving more and more stress. And all these sensations in my body, it was full of sensations. And I said, I'm going through it, even without any question. And I feel now that by allowing it, at a certain moment, it's like I was looking to it. I think it was when Joni, was asking her question. I was looking to it from another place, and it was a big smile. Okay, is that what it's all about? All the sensations in this body, and you not knowing what to say or whatever. But I wanted just to show myself in this vulnerability who I really am, not caring. That I could see as well, not caring about what all the other people think from me. And it's so nice just to do this without asking any question.
That is awakening, right? I'm just going to be as I am. This is a real conversation, right? This is authenticity. This is a real meeting, you and I. And it's like, if I get embarrassed and I have nothing to say when it's my turn, so be it, right? I'm willing to be embarrassed if that's what it takes to be myself. But actually, when you get there, it's just, this is really nice, just so nice. And you don't look stressed at all right now, I have to say.
No more sensations now. Yeah, I really feel that I went through something very important. So I can really relate what you said from the beginning, that what we push away probably has felt something. I really got it.
And what then if
So great.
everything is here, whatever we're struggling with, right, is here right now to help us deepen in our seeing and our being. It's total opposite to what the mind says, right? This is in the way of my awakening. This should go away. When you go right into it, it's a doorway, isn't it, to freedom?
fully, fully. So great.
And that wouldn't have happened, right? If you'd have got your hand up first, you wouldn't have had all that time. Life is amazing.
That's what's so amazing. And I said, how is it possible? I'm pushing on it and nothing is working.
I was even ready
was-
with my hand to go raise hand.
Yeah. After 10 minutes, I knew I have to go for it already. Thank you very much.
Well, it's really nice to meet you. Really nice to meet you.
I feel it.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, what an amazing place to leave it today. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for the questions that you sent in and the very brave sharings here online. Quite profound seeings. It just gets better every time, doesn't it? Wonderful. Thank you. Namaste.